Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome to Life Planning 101. It is October 2021. My name is Angela Kennedy Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services. Happy to have you as our listener today. And like always, we have a bundle of information to hand out. I think everybody, has this sense of chaos these days. And I was actually having a great conversation earlier this week with someone. I said, I remember back in March of 2020 when we all got under lockdown and we thought, well, there is this pandemic, but yet there is maybe a silver lining in all of this. We can slow down. We can focus on what's most important, focus on our family, do all these things. Well, yeah, needless to say, that hasn't happened. I think we all figured out technology. We can move Mach 10, and all the time we spent traveling to and from or doing other things, we filled it. We didn't do anything to slow down. And I think that's the truth across the entire country because, you think about how much has actually changed since we entered this decade in January of 2020. I mean, really think about that. How much has changed since we entered this decade in 2020? It's amazing. And you ask yourself, how do I plan for anything right now? There is so much up in the air, so many unknowns, so much going on, so many fears. The media really has, I think, inserted our homes as used to be our next door neighbor, our friends coming over, and now we've let the media into our homes, and that fear just seems to be rampant. And, you think about that in relation to the world kind of getting spun on its heels. I think people don't even know where they're at sometimes. I think we've all felt that way from time to time through this pandemic. And, I think if you look at the world as a big picture, it's changed a lot. There's no wonder you feel that way. And there's more change coming. Look at what's happening right now at the Ways and Means Committee. And as I'm actually doing this show, there might or might not be a vote today in Congress as to what is going to be happening with our tax proposals and these bills that are getting released. And I know everybody has been thinking, so, with all this going on, how do you do anything? How do you know what to do? I've had that question asked to me thousands and thousands of times. And with that being said, I think one of the things that we do as a life planning firm is, we find the calm in the storm and we try to figure out how to find that area that we get to start from, that we get to launch from to make things happen. Because, reality is there's always a storm going on around us. I'm watching this great show on Amazon. It's about Paul and Luke, biblical characters. And, I'm just realizing, during the time when Nero was the emperor in Rome, it was crazy. It was nuts. People were fearful. People didn't know what to think. They didn't know what to do. And you look at today and the reality is I fear, we're not in that much of a fearful environment. We're not fearing for our lives in a sense, but we are fearing for a lot of things. And I think, no matter the times, it was a great retrospect, great wisdom to look back on and say, this has always been the case. Chaos has always been the case. There has always been things going on all across the world. And the only difference is we didn't feel all of it then because we didn't have the technology that we have today. We didn't have the media that we have today. We didn't have all these things that were, just flooding our minds and making us think about everything. We talk so hard about our children and what we put them in front of at the TV. And if that's going into their brain, if they're constantly watching violence, are they becoming a violent kid? We think about those things with our children, but have we thought about those things with ourselves and really what we're intaking on a daily basis, being in this, I call it a post-pandemic world, but it's really not a post-pandemic world. And the truth be told is it's very dangerous. And, I think about change. We talk a lot about change because it's something that's inevitable. It's something that needs to happen. When you're in a business, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no such thing as a status quo. So change can be good. Change is often good. But when it comes so hard and so fast, I think it becomes paralyzing. And I feel that that's pretty much where everybody is right now. They're paralyzed. How many times, for example, going back to that House bill with the Ways and Means Committee that they've released in September, how many times has the president and Congress between the two changed their tax proposals in regard to this $3.5 trillion bill? I mean, there were things thrown out in early days about we were going to lose our step up in basis. Well, that's not currently sitting in that proposal right now. We were talking about capital gains rates being ordinary income rates, and albeit they're higher in the proposal, but they aren't that. And, we talked about, having to realize gains on an asset, even if it's not sold when someone passes away. Well, that's nowhere to be mentioned in the House proposal right now either. So, you've got all of this hoopla, all of this information that's just been out there and flooding our brains and flooding our minds, and everybody throwing up their hands and say, I can't keep up with what's happening. I'm just going to sit here and wait. Well, we think it's out of control, right? We know it's out of control, but we definitely think it's out of control for our situation. And this paralysis, this wait and see plan that we've created is actually a very dangerous plan. So today on Life Planning 101, we're going to talk about this wait and see plan. And then we're going to talk about how you can plan and why you should be planning and where you need to start. You're not going to want to miss it when we come back. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services. Be sure to visit us online at www.kennedy-financial.com. Sign up for our weekly newsletter every week. Relevant, fresh information that we create, we originate. It's not something that's canned. It's something that's relevant. It's something that's pertinent to the people that we're working with on a weekly basis. And we cover all those 8 life planning issues. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it be family support, charitable gifting, business succession planning, legacy planning, insurance, taxes, liabilities, investments. We do it all. So make sure you sign up for our podcast, read our newsletters. I promise you it is a piece of wisdom that's going to end up in your inbox every week, and you're not going to want to miss that. But today is no different. We are talking about how do you plan for anything right now? And there's a great quote by Anthony LeShone, and he says, "A bridge can still be built while the bitter waters are flowing beneath." A bridge can still be built while the bitter waters are flowing beneath. I think there's no better visual aid of what's going on right now. I think a lot of us, no matter what your political point of view is you're bitter about something going on in the world today, something you don't like about all this change that has been happening since the beginning of this decade, a little over a year and 10 months ago, right? Oh, man, it's a lot. And there's more coming. That pendulum in DC swings so hard back and forth. I mean, it's almost nauseating. And I think about business owners, a lot through this situation, because I think as a business owner, this makes your planning really tough because you got to plan for all the caveats. You got to plan for the what if of this and the what if of that. And how do you plan? How do people plan in this environment? It's hard. It's really hard. Going back to that House and Ways and Means proposal we talked about, it's out. And as I'm writing this, as I mentioned in the first segment, the vote, might or might not happen today. And, yet there's still significant changes from what was in the proposal to begin with. And I think that's something that we have to consider, is that even though we see all of this on the news, we hear what might happen, when things actually hash out, they're usually not as bad as we think they are. And this is what this is pairing up to be. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some significant changes. There's going to be a new 3% surtax, potentially, on income that exceeds $5 million. They're going to expand that little 3.8% net investment income tax to income above, $500,000 for joint filers, no matter what you have. They're going to increase the top ordinary income tax rate to 39.6%. Well, really, if you want to think about what the top rate is when you add on the net investment income tax and the other tax, and it's 46.4%. So that's a pretty large jump from where it's at today. They're going to limit that Section 199A, that extra 20% deduction that pass-through business owners might be able to have access to. It's going to be capped, right? They're going to increase the top capital gains rate. So here's a great example. We thought that was going to go to ordinary income rates. Nope, it's looking to be about 25%, but it can still have that, net investment income tax and that 3% surtax. So it could be about 31.8% in some cases. But the income thresholds on that are also drastically different from what we saw. The bad news is that some of that actually might be written into the code where the effective date is September 13th of this year. That's already happened. So if this proposal were to get passed, that legislation were to get passed, then that's where we're at, right? Here's a favorable one. There might be a temporary clause to allow certain S corporations to reorganize as partnerships without triggering taxation. That could be huge. We just did a whole show on why S Corps are not great vehicles when you're looking to exit your business. So there might be some potential awesome loopholes that you're going to be able to take advantage of there. There's also some flip side to that. If you've got some pass-through businesses and you take losses on some of your businesses, you might not be able to offset that on the gains against other businesses or other incomes. We don't know how exactly that's going to pan out. We talk about estate tax and lifetime exemptions there. They look to cut that in half. That's really no surprise, but it's not as bad as we thought it could be. It could have been the $3.5 million, and we could have lost the step up in basis. And then there's a lot of rules around what they're doing with estate planning. Some tools that we've used for years are going to be gone unless you get on it before the end of the year and get these in place. There's some rules around IRAs that are going to change. There's some rules around green preservation, conservation easements that are going to change. That's important to note. So I think it's critical that you stay up to speed with what might be relevant to your situation. Yet at the same time, this isn't in stone. This is just a proposal. Nothing has been panned out. I mean, my goodness, they passed that. What was it? The budget reconciliation deal or no, I'm getting it wrong. The infrastructure bill. This is the budget reconciliation. So infrastructure bill, and it was supposed to pass through the House, and it still hasn't gone, and it still might not go today. So we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. And if you're sitting around waiting for things to happen like that, man, number one, it's stressful. It's extremely stressful. Number two is, how do you plan when you don't know what's going to happen? You certainly can't. I got a secret for you, though. Incredible change happens in your life when you decide to take control of what you do have power over rather than waiting for someone else to control you over what they have power of. What do I mean by that? Well, if you wait, there's some risks with that. If you have the wait and see plan, which I think too many people really have the wait and see plan right now, if you're one of those that has that wait and see plan, unfortunately, there's a problem with that, and it's twofold, but the enemy's the same. Waiting could eliminate your opportunities. We already just talked about a couple of those. And it could cost you more. The enemy is time. So when we come back on Life Planning 101, we're going to talk about why the enemy is time and what you need to be doing about it right now. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services here in the great town of Eastland, Texas. And we are talking about kind of being in paralysis mode with how do you plan in this environment? How do you know where to go? And, we wrote a piece a few weeks ago, and it was called Don't Begin with the End in Mind. And it was kind of a satirical way to say it. But a lot of people believe the end in mind is the here and now. They're, dealing with the today. And we're all guilty. We focus on what's in front of us. We focus on selling this business or that piece of real estate, or maybe you're getting ready to retire, or you want to focus on how to pass on your business or your legacy tax efficiently to your children. And a good result is the end in mind for you in that situation. But in reality, it isn't. It isn't at all. Because here's the deal. Are you stopping to look at your life in its entirety when you deal with those decisions? Let me ask you this question. If you got to put a jigsaw puzzle together, what is the most important part of that jigsaw puzzle? The box! The box! I mean, everybody would freak out if they had this huge puzzle in front of them and they didn't have a picture of what they're actually trying to create, right? Well, every single piece of your life, every single piece of your success is merely a piece of this picture. How can you possibly put a lifetime of puzzle pieces together overnight? Well, when you're on that wait and see plan, we'll just wait to see what Congress does pop out the last hour and I've got a month to plan. You're going to have 3 choices. All right. Number 1, you're going to pull an all-nighter and you're going to hope to get the puzzle right. And by the way, if you even get the puzzle right, and if there's a professional that has the time to be able to help you, much less if you're needing an attorney, a good one, a great one, probably impossible to find. A good one, you might be able to find. Anyone, I don't know. I have no idea. I assume they're all going to be swamped when this legislation actually pours out. So pulling an all-nighter and hoping you get the puzzle right, a lifetime of work and doing it quickly, right, would be number 1. Number 2, you can put together only the parts of the puzzle that are top of mind, right? That little piece that you're dealing with, yet there's a lot of risk in that. What holes, gaps, overlaps? I mean, if I'm looking at a nail and all I've got is a hammer, then it works. If I'm looking at a nail and I have a screwdriver, it's not going to work. So what are you looking at? How do we know what we're looking at? We don't, right? And number 3 is we could just get a cookie cutter puzzle instead of your own puzzle. It doesn't have to be unique to you, right? I don't think anybody wants to do any of that. So I got a better solution for you. And we started out this whole piece this week of, how do I plan in this environment? Well, it's simple. It's not simple, but it's simple. And the simplicity is you start right now. And you say, well, how do I do that? We don't even know what's going to happen. And you're right, we don't. Remember what I said? Incredible change happens in your life when you decide to take control of what you do have power over, instead of waiting on someone else to make a decision and have power over you. Start with what's most important to you. Yeah, this is about the money. No doubt, right? Why would you be waiting if it wasn't? But is the money really why the money's important? Or is there something the money does that's important to you? What is most important to you about your money? And don't just tell me that it's to make sure that you're taken care of. It goes deeper than that. Dig. What is it that you want it to accomplish? If this is your last day on earth and you're looking back at your life, what regrets do you not want to have? What would have to happen for you to feel good about your life? Have you answered those questions? Or when you're just planning for the sale of that real estate, does it even matter? I would say it does, because I'd say those tax planning tools that you might be using might not be a fit for really what's important and what regrets you don't want to have. What needs to change right now? If that's all the things that you want, why aren't they in place right now? What would need to change? What would need to happen? Identifying those holes. See, you spend your time piecing together all these pieces of your life and your success that you've already had. I mean, my gosh, you're successful. You've done it. You just got to piece it together so somebody could be able to look at it. And then we see if there's a few pieces missing. And we figure out how to solve those pieces. See, to build your plan, you start with where you are. You don't need Congress. You don't need any other external influences for this. Yes, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And most of the time, when we work with somebody, the most time-consuming part is the somebody. Yep, it's not the attorneys. It's not the tax man. It's not anybody else. It's you making these crucial decisions about what you really want. And the funny thing is that if you get all that in order, the rest can just fall into place. Yep, it's important to build flexibility. We all know that. We all know we need flexibility in the plan, but it can all fall into place if everything is pieced together. Imagine you got a jigsaw puzzle sitting in front of you, and you're missing 3 pieces. How easy is it to put those 3 pieces in? And imagine over on your other side, you got a jigsaw puzzle that isn't even put together at all. That's the difference. So really, it's what's most important to you that's all those pieces. It's the tools that are those 3 pieces. So the bottom line is this. You have a lot to plan for. If you're successful, you do. There's no doubt. There's so much change right now. You got to be paying attention, or else someone else is going to be paying attention more than you are, and they're going to get the majority of it, right? We know that. But you may not have to plan as much as you think you have to plan for on the waiting side. You just got to be ready to pull the trigger when it's time. So don't wait. Plan today. Get ready to pull that trigger. It'll be here before you know it. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services here in Eastland, Texas. God bless everyone. Hey, it's Cowboy season. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but they're good this year. Just saying, go Cowboys. Make sure you go to our website, www.kennedy-financial.com. Sign up for our newsletters. They're great information. This podcast, you can sign up for our Life Planning 101 podcast and listen to us anytime, any place. Have a great one, and hope to have you next week on Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated, Calton & Associates Incorporated, and Smart Money Group, LLC are separate entities.